Were you surprised? Looking in the direction of the voice, John and his mother were standing there. Hey, what's going on here? To my question, John and his mother snorted in response. We're moving in with Mom. We threw out your stuff. If you don't like it, leave. That's right, we don't need a daughter-in-law who doesn't care about her husband. Get out now. And we don't need that unattractive grandchild of yours either. But, this house. I was about to talk about the house, but I realized something and stopped. Maybe driving them out of this house isn't a bad idea. Well, you're gonna regret this later. I don't care what happens to you. My name is Alyssa Thompson, a 35-year-old working housewife. I live with my husband, John, and our son, Michael, who's in first grade. Just an ordinary housewife, like many out there. If there's anything unique about me, it's probably that I grew up in a wealthy family. I have passive income from land, buildings, stocks, and such, but I wanted to work and earn my own living. My parents also lived in a very typical single-family home without flaunting their wealth. Not many people in our neighborhood knew we were wealthy. If people found out about our wealth, they'd come after us for money. That's why my family has always lived modestly for generations. John and I worked at the same company. I joined later, but I got promoted faster. It seemed I was a better fit for the job. When we were dating, it was all good. But after we got married, he started resenting the disparity. A marriage with a disparity in status. Marrying up. John was looked down upon at work, and there were even rumors that he was under my thumb at home. He started getting mocked because it seemed he was in a lesser position compared to me. It's not John's fault. Even when he got frustrated, I never blamed him. But after I took maternity leave, his attitude started to change. During my maternity leave, he'd make snide comments like, "Must be nice to get money without working." Once I was on childcare leave, he'd say, "I'm the one supporting you. You better remember that and watch your attitude." Indeed, you get paid during maternity leave even though you're not working. But in exchange, women risk their lives to give birth. Childcare leave is unpaid time off to take care of the child. I was grateful to John for supporting me during that time. Originally, I appreciated John for accepting our dual income setup and for splitting the living expenses fairly. So there was no need for him to flaunt his dominance. I was saddened by John's change in attitude. And after I returned to work from childcare leave, our relationship started to get strained. John began to neglect my son and me. The deposits into our joint living expenses account gradually decreased until John's contributions hit zero. Even after I returned to work, he didn't lift a finger around the house or help with child rearing. Perhaps he used to feel superior, but now that I've gone back to work, his sense of superiority has been challenged. At work, since I'm the boss, there are times I have to be strict, even with my husband, regarding matters within my purview. This includes things like business-related warnings, but I try my best to do it discreetly, away from the eyes of other employees. I wonder if John thought I should overlook things simply because he's my husband. I try to act naturally, but it seems even that doesn't sit well with him. I'm always wondering how we can become a harmonious family again. What bothers me just as much as John's attitude is the presence of my mother-in-law, Kate. She's one of those mothers-in-law who adores her son and constantly criticizes everything I do, never missing a chance to put me down. When we got married, she even criticized me for having a higher position at work than John. Oh my, for a woman to claim she's a manager, higher than John? What was she thinking? How could a woman like that even think of marrying my dear John? Women should be modest, walking behind their husbands. Such a dated view on women, and Kate shouted it out loud. I'll never forget that shock. Especially since John started to ignore me and Michael, Kate's snide comments have gotten worse. Maybe John, when visiting his family home, filled Kate's ears with bad stories about me. Even when I reported going back to work, Kate's sarcasm was relentless. Leaving such a small child and going to work? Don't you have any maternal feelings? Oh right, a child born to a woman like you can't be cute. And she didn't even bother with Michael after saying that. Being her direct grandson, and a boy at that, I thought Michael would at least be doted on by her. But that wasn't the case. I feel so sorry for Michael, treated poorly just because I am his mother. Michael doesn't talk about his father or grandmother. Being in first grade, he must have sensed the ill will directed at him by his father and grandmother. My parents absolutely adore Michael. They love him so much that they would say, "I could eat him up and not feel a thing." They've made and played with toys together, and have let him participate in events like making s'mores at campfires. They always talk to him, and listen to his stories with a smile. That's why Michael seems to prefer being at my parents' home over our own. He often stays there for long periods during summer breaks. It's curious how different the two sets of grandparents can be. I really don't know what to do. Lately, John's behavior has been suspicious. After work, he's been spending a lot of time at his mother Kate's place, seemingly up to something. Not long after John and I got married, his father passed away. So, now Kate lives alone. She probably can't contain her happiness that John is visiting her. She seems to be fussing over him a lot. John eats dinner and even takes his showers at Kate's house, which means less work for me. But I can't shake off this bad feeling. What could John be plotting? The only thing I can think of right now is that he might be considering moving in with Kate. Kate has always been keen on living with John. Every time the topic of moving in together came up, I remember she would glare at me as if I was the enemy. When our relationship was strong, John used to say, "It'll just be Alyssa and me." He always managed to politely refuse the idea. However, ever since he started trying to assert dominance over me, he's become closer to Kate. It seems he wants to live with Kate, who's on his side. And he probably wants to belittle me even more. Currently, I'm the one taking care of the living expenses for me, John, and Michael. I earn more than John and also have some inheritance from my family, so we aren't struggling. But I had always wanted to live on the money we earned, not relying on inherited assets. That's why I haven't told John about the inheritance. I wonder what he's doing with his salary. Perhaps he's spending it on his hobbies or trying to please Kate. I really don't want to live with Kate. I don't want to be constantly nagged at, and I certainly don't want Michael to be ignored or verbally abused at home. It's sad that John doesn't pay attention to Michael, but that's still better than him facing outright hostility. If we move in together, it's gonna be like walking on eggshells. Lost in thought, I muttered to myself. Michael overheard me. "Mom, what's moving in mean?" I was taken aback, realizing that Michael was right next to me while I was lost in thought. "I'm sorry, I was just thinking." "Tell me, Michael. How would you feel if we started living with your dad's mom?" Michael is a smart kid. It's better to inform him somewhat than trying to hide everything. After pondering my question for a moment, he replied, "Grandma Kate? If we're gonna live with a grandma, I'd prefer your parents. Grandma Kate doesn't talk to me." Seeing the sadness in Michael's eyes hurt. He must have wanted attention from Kate, even though she's the way she is. This made me both sad and angry. How could she treat her own grandchild this way? One day, as these concerns weighed on me, something decisive happened. When I returned home from work, Michael rushed out to me. Mom, Dad's doing strange thing." Seeing how flustered Michael was, I had a sinking feeling. "What happened? What did your dad do?" Michael pointed to the garden from the front door. Looking at the garden Michael pointed to, I couldn't believe my eyes. My clothes, books, Michael's clothes, and school supplies were all thrown into the yard. "Hey, what's this about?" As I stood in shock before the pile of clothes and books, I heard John's laughter. "Surprised, huh? What of you? A worthless wife standing in front of a trash pile." Looking in the direction of the voice, there stood John and his mother, Kate. Still not believing the scene before me, I asked John, "Hey, what's going on here? Not just my stuff, but Michael's too?" "I know you don't like me. It might take time to forgive, but if you call it harassment, well, I guess I can understand. But Michael's just a kid in elementary school. What on earth are you and Kate thinking, dragging him into this mess?" I felt my blood boiling in anger. To my question, John and Kate snorted in response. "Because my mom's gonna live with us, I threw out your stuff. If you don't like it, leave." "Yeah. We don't need a wife who doesn't care for her husband. Leave and take that not-so-cute grandson you gave birth to with you." As John and Kate laughed loudly, something inside me snapped. Not content with just tossing my things, they threw Michael's out too. And to say, in front of Michael, that he's not cute and not wanted. Enough is enough. I've been patient for too long. "All right then." To my response, John and Kate were overjoyed. Grinning, they spoke loudly. Now you see how important I am. No matter how high and mighty you act, without me, you can't get by. Exactly. It must be hard for a clueless wife like you. Thinking you're better when you should be following your husband. It's pitiful, really. I let out a deep sigh. Michael and I will leave. I assume this means you want a divorce? At my question, John exclaimed with delight. Don't like it? If you don't, kneel down, beg, and say you'll serve me. And don't forget to act humble at work. Then maybe I'll reconsider the divorce. No need. I'll go to the lawyer's office by tomorrow. As I responded calmly, John looked taken aback. What? You're sure about the divorce? You set it up this way, with this stunt. Did he think I'd cry and beg? Clearly flustered by my unwavering stance, John was at a loss for words. Seeing this, Kate chimed in. Why are you being so arrogant? John's offering kind words, and you ignore him? You're really an infuriating daughter-in-law. I replied as I picked up the clothes thrown in the yard. I always tried to support you in my own way. But it seems you never noticed. That's it. I don't want to be with someone who doesn't value Michael and me. Michael was quietly gathering his clothes and school supplies. I can't imagine how painful it must have been for Michael, still in elementary school, to have his belongings thrown away by his father and Kate. I didn't show it, but I was seething with anger. In the midst of all this, I suddenly remembered something about our house contract. There was a special clause in our lease. But that house. I started to talk about the house, but then I realized something and stopped. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to use this to get back at these two. Well, y'all are probably gonna regret this later. Not my problem anymore. Heh, what do you think you can do all by yourself? Don't come crying back to me later. John seemed frustrated that things weren't going his way. He repeatedly hurled insults at me. With our belongings packed, Michael and I left our home. Later on, carrying our essentials, Michael and I took shelter at my parents' home. My parents were shocked by John and Kate's behavior but were happy to take us in. Michael was thrilled to see his grandparents, whom he adored. I need to finalize the divorce now. Leaving Michael with my parents, I started thinking about the next steps. Then, I consulted a lawyer who had been a long-time acquaintance of my family. Having dealt with financial matters for a long time, he was experienced in divorce cases involving monetary disputes. The most important thing was child support for Michael. While I could support Michael on my own, I intended for John to uphold his responsibilities as a father. The next day, I returned to our former home with the lawyer. At our old place, John was quickly setting up to live with Kate. Kate, with a wide grin, greeted us. I laid out the divorce papers on the table for John to sign. He quickly filled them out, seemingly eager to be free. Then the lawyer started explaining the child support. The mention of child support made John and Kate erupt. Child support? I've been embarrassed because of you, and now I have to pay? What a pitiful woman. All you think about is taking money from John. John, you don't owe her a dime. Quite the predictable reaction. Regardless of what you think, Michael is John's son and your grandchild, Kate. I'll go to court if necessary. At my words, John stood up in anger. But the lawyer calmed him down and explained the reasonableness of the amount. Damn, if we didn't work at the same company, I could have handled this differently. John muttered in frustration. Of course. Since we work at the same place, if word got out that John was dodging child support, it'd be a scandal. To which I added. Oh, speaking of which, now that we've got the divorce papers, we're nothing to each other. Starting tomorrow, I'm gonna treat you just like any other employee. Now that you're not my husband, I don't have to protect your image. Upon hearing this, John went pale. That's right. To protect his image as my husband, I used to give him feedback privately or subtly within our casual conversations. But the truth is, John isn't that competent in his job. He gets scolded almost daily by other supervisors. Seems he finally realized how much I'd shielded him. From now on, he'll be scolded by his ex-wife, too. And he'll be laughed at and looked down upon by other employees. Imagining that. He fell silent. After the divorce was finalized, I started taking measures against John and Kate. First, I transferred all the bills I'd been covering, like rent and utilities, to John. Then, I sent him an eviction notice. Hey! What's this eviction notice? Why is it coming in your name? A few days later, John called after receiving the eviction notice. Well, it was time for the lease renewal, and I decided not to renew it. Even if you wanted to continue, I'd decline. It's a house I'm renting out under my name, so it makes sense, doesn't it? What? It's under your name? It was clear from the other side of the phone that John was flabbergasted. In fact, the house he had been living in was under my name, Alyssa. I inherited it as part of my assets and had been renting it out. I wasn't sure what kind of reactions I'd get if John or my former mother-in-law, Kate, found out it was under my name. They might start to rely on the assets and passive income one possess. Especially John, he'd probably quit his job and live a lavish lifestyle. And Kate would likely spend as if saying, "My daughter-in-law's money is my money." So, I had been effectively paying rent to myself. Well, if it's your house, there shouldn't be a problem with me living there. We're married after all. Married? What are you talking about? I already filed for divorce. You and I are complete strangers now. I'm not the type to let a complete stranger live in my house for no reason. Please move out by the specified date. Finally, doubt crept into John's words. Hold on, what do you mean your house? Even if you hold a higher position than me, you're just another employee. Moreover, this is the house we lived in since we got married. Well, maybe you didn't notice because I never told you, but my family has always been wealthy. We own various properties, like lands and condos, and some are under my name. At my words, John seemed to be taken aback. The ex-wife he always saw as a foe was, in fact, a wealthy heiress with properties. Yet she still worked, and if he was with her, he'd never have to worry about money. Maybe thinking that, John flipped his stance. Hey Alyssa, can we give it another try? This time, I'm gonna treat you right and we won't live with my mom. What do you say? Quite the about face. Who would want to start over after all that? Letting it all out, I let him have it. You think I'd ever reconsider things with someone who changes their attitude on a dime? You always said how humiliated you felt because I had a better job and earned more. It's over, I'm moving away from such a person. Good for you, no more shame to bear. I yelled with all I had and hung up. Phew, that felt good. I can't wait to see what happens with John and Kate. From then on, things seemed to have gone downhill for John and Kate. They struggled to find a new place to live. While I gave them some time before the eviction, they dragged their feet and didn't bother finding a new place. So, after the eviction, they had to look for a place while carrying all their stuff. Apparently, it looked pretty ridiculous. Some of our colleagues even saw it, and word spread about them getting kicked out of their house. And now, he had to face me at work. John seemed deeply humiliated. Damn it. If Alyssa would just reconsider, I wouldn't have to go through this. Maybe I should quit this uncomfortable job and move to another company. But quitting wasn't easy for John. He had chosen to live with Kate, which meant he had to cover living expenses for both of them now. For John, who had been relying on me for living expenses for years, it would be tough. Almost all of his income would now go to bills. He seemed super stressed. Even Kate, who he was once close with, their relationship soured. She had been hoping for a relaxed life, having me handle all the household chores. But that dream was shattered with the divorce. John, who lives with her, covers the living expenses, so Kate must handle the household chores. Now, it seems he's been making snide remarks towards John. He's such a useless son. Doesn't earn much, lets a wife who can both earn well and do chores slip away, and makes me do the housework. What? It's your fault, Alyssa, and I got divorced. If it weren't for you. What did you just say? How can you say that to your own mother? John has to pay child support for Michael. After paying the child support from his not-so-high salary, he doesn't have much left. He has to live on that small amount. Now that he no longer has the financial security he used to, it seems John and Kate are fighting daily. They might split up and end up living lonely lives on their own. But whatever happens, it's none of my business. In front of his colleagues, John probably couldn't ask me for help. He'd just be ridiculed, clinging to his discarded ex-wife, begging for assistance. I chuckled at the thought. Since then, I've been living in a small apartment near my parents' home with Michael. Life is easier both financially and mentally with the help of my parents and without John and Kate around. Michael's face has brightened a lot. When I come home, he rushes to me right away. Mom! Today at school. Hold on, sweetie, wash your hands and put your backpack away first. Then tell me all about it. He chats a lot with me and my parents. Seeing Michael's smile, I feel good about the divorce and regret keeping him in that environment before. I used to be preoccupied with my relationship with John and Kate, not thinking about the future. But now, I can live for a clear goal, Michael's happiness. I've realized the importance of relationships with those around you. Michael, are you getting along with your friends? No one's being mean or anything? Yeah, I'm good. Everyone's nice, and if someone says something wrong, they apologize and everyone forgives. Even kids know how to be considerate and apologize. I'll try not to act rudely towards others as well.